Paging Dr. Teel is a podcast dedicated to highlighting the importance of a holistic approach to mental health, which emphasizes the connection between the mind, body, and spirit. The goal of holistic wellness is to achieve maximum well-being where all domains are functioning at their best. When it comes to holistic health, we're looking beyond the physical body and addressing physical, emotional, social, spiritual, and intellectual health collectively. I'm Dr. Teel, your psychologist bestie and host of Paging Dr. Teel. Join me on a highly relatable journey of discovery, holistic wellness, and being happier, healthier, and whole. With holistic wellness, people accept responsibility for their own level of well-being, and everyday choices are used to take charge of one's own health. Health is wealth, so take care of yourself, friends. Paging Dr. Teel is currently available on Anchor, Apple, or Spotify. But regardless as to how you listen to the podcast, please be sure to subscribe, like, share, and write us a review. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Paging Dr. Teel, and visit us on the web at www.pagingdrteel.com. And if you have a question or situation you want to receive some guidance on, send them to pagingdrteel@gmail.com. I'm here for you, so I want to hear from you, friend. It's the constant. I tell on myself because I know I'm not the only one out there. New job, finding somewhere. Hey, friend, Doc tapping in. So I'm late. I'm sorry. I also have to apologize because sound quality might not be as crisp and as clear as it is when I'm recording in the studio. I am actually on the road again. That's right. Paging Dr. Teel is on the road right now. Literally transitioning from one life to the next. Yes, I'm not dying or anything. Not today anyways. But I am in the middle of transitioning and closing out one chapter of life and fully tapping in to the next. And so it's like I'm kind of caught between two worlds right now, closing things out for my previous job and where I live, and then also making plans for what's to come, setting things up for this to live, and just mentally wrapping my mind around things. And I've come to the realization that any type of transition, whether it's a new job, a different chapter in your life, a new relationship, a new goal, habit, whatever the case may be, super stressful. And these transitions bring up a level of stress that really tests our resolve and really allows us to see how we're thinking and operating. So I thought it was super fitting that in the midst of one of the bigger transitions that I've had to experience, that what we're talking about on the podcast has resonated so very much with me. So I know that I'm not alone. I know I'm not the only one going through some sort of transition. I had a cousin who just moved to Germany. Her husband's military. They just moved to Germany, and that whole transition process, and she's still in transition right now, was stressful for her. Like one of her younger kids didn't get his passport until the day before it was time for them to leave. And then they had to be concerned about COVID and making sure that they didn't have a temperature or didn't get sick and all that time that they were waiting. So it was stressful all the way up until they got on that plane. And I think life kind of works like that. And I think this is a time of year where we're all going through some degree of transition. And the most important thing to remember when you're going through a transition is, one, to be flexible. And I have a little story time for that a little later, because I've had to be super duper flexible. And flexibility is key just because it allows you to put the necessary energy towards the solutions, create a space that allows you to feel how you want to feel. It just allows you to remain adaptable to whatever the situation is. Flexibility really allows us to let go of any preconceived notions or expectations for a situation and really just be present and address the situation for what it is. Because realistically, like, I've had to pull myself back and remind myself of that very thing, that look, no such thing as all bad or all good. That's called polarized thinking. I cannot think Things are always going to be bad or always going to be good just because I get a string of good or bad things. That's a flawed way of thinking. That's faulty. That's not true. Things are not always going to be one way. Things are always going to change. That is what I have to focus on. And amidst all of that change, I have to create a space for myself. I can be okay regardless of what today brings. So I have to remind myself when having a character building moment, this is what today has in store for me. And my job to take care of whatever my way. Happiness is my responsibility. My success is my responsibility. How I feel is my responsibility. How can I create circumstances that allow me to get to my desired result? Least amount of frustration and headache. And oftentimes, the best way to circumvent the frustration and the headache, just to step away from this. We have to step away from this idea that things are going to be easy. I was guilty of that for a very long time and can be guilty of that still if I'm not paying attention. I expect because I do the right thing, seemingly, that things are going to work out for me. That is called heaven's reward fallacy. And the heaven's reward fallacy is notion that because you're a good person and you do right things, that some cosmic force is keeping score and somehow you're going to be rewarded in the end. Works like that depending on belief system. However, that is definitely it varies. Belief systems vary. That is very perception based and realistically speaking. And if it does work that way, depending on God that you believe, not simple, concrete as we make it to be in our heads. Because you're nice to someone does not promise you easier life. Because you go out of your way and you're selfless doesn't mean that that jerk on the road is not going to cut you off, or everyone's going to treat you nicely or go out of their way to make sure you're good. It doesn't work like that. Nice people get the short end of the stick too. And so I think we have to operate with a very high degree of cognitive and emotional flexibility so that, when life throws us rocks, we can lean with it instead of rocking with it, because there's always going to be something. I told my cousin, I made this analogy about life, and I'll give you guys the PG version, but I said that, life is a crap sandwich, like poop. Life is a poop sandwich sometimes. And you get a new poop sandwich every single day. Every day life will hand you some sort of crap deal, some sort of poop sandwich. And it is your responsibility to eat that poop sandwich like a champ. Because the last thing you need is for that crap to stack up. Because then you're just going to be full of poop. So that's not the best example. And it sounds better with the curse word, honestly. But the point that I'm trying to make is that life is not going to ever stop. So we can't either. We're about to have a moment. But I think the best use of those moments and that time should be to reflect. And to reflect on our thoughts and our feelings and our behaviors. And just to do a little inventory and make sure that what we're thinking and what we're feeling and what we're doing really aligns with who we want to be in this world and what we want to get out of this world. As a queen catastrophizer, I'm going to tell on myself, don't judge me, friend. I've come to learn, especially during stressful times, I am the queen of catastrophizing. I'll take that molehill and turn it into a huge, huge mountain and lament and throw myself a pity party. And I've always felt like that's how I have to solve the problem. So if a problem comes, I'm overwhelmed, upset, have a tantrum, have that tantrum for however long I need to. Most of the time, it's 4 to 48 hours, depending on the nature of the event. Then I snap out of it and I get into problem solve mode. I'll pray and I'll really start to weigh pros and cons, make a list, make a decision, keep it moving. Like literally, that is how I approach problem solving when it comes to things in my life. And I've come to realize with this move currently, that extra step on the front end of me exerting all of this unnecessary energy to complain feel like I'm the victim or someone's getting over on me. A waste. Someone told me that that was a waste a long time ago, and I didn't believe him. Shout out to you, friend. But I've seen that in action in my life. We are addicted to complaining and worshiping our problems at times. We have to really step away from that. And in order to step away from that, we have to think about our thinking. We have to be a lot more present in the moment and also take a degree of accountability. It boils down to, if we choose better, we exert less unnecessary energy, we get to the solution quicker, and we become empowered knowing that whatever comes our way, we're capable of handling it. Like I said before, I'm in the middle of a transition. I'm closing out one chapter of life and tapping into a new chapter of life. So I'm torn between two worlds right now. And as overwhelming as it gets sometimes, I remind myself that nothing is ever all good or all bad. And today, this is what I get. Whatever it is, however that looks, I'm going to deal with today. And then I will deal with tomorrow. But I will only deal with one day at a time. And it's not my job to judge necessarily whether today is good or bad. It's my job to do today. And so me in my transitioning, and I know I'm not the only one that's transitioning in some way right now, I am choosing to accept what the day has to offer and put my best foot forward to get through today in a way that allows me to feel empowered and capable of dealing with whatever comes my way. And I've just found that I have poor frustration tolerance. So as soon as I get aggravated, I start catastrophizing and thinking the worst is going to happen. And I've noticed that, like, those are my steps. I feel overwhelmed. I get frustrated. And then my mind is gone. I'm thinking about the worst case scenario. So I've already gone to 2 weeks from now, and it's just Tuesday. And that's because my emotions have pulled me so far away from the situation. And so when we think about our thinking and we lead with logic, instead of being pulled by our emotions in that way, you're able to kind of pull the reins in before it gets that far gone. And so I'll use affirmations to keep me anchored in the present and not so triggered and emotional. So my first one for my trigger is, because once I get triggered and I start feeling overwhelmed, if I don't pull myself back, then it is a wrap. I become a nervous wreck and I can't think clearly. And so I tell myself, you might want to write this down because I use this all the time. It's super, super helpful. I tell myself, I let go of my anger so that I can see clearly. And I'll say it over and over. I let go of my anger so that I can see clearly. I let go of my anger so that I can see clearly. Because I will get frustrated when things don't go my way. I will get angry. I will have a full-on tantrum and like really lose it for a little bit. And I realized that whole little burst of energy and all the energy that it takes to do all of that, which isn't helpful for me, it only slows me down. Because I've exerted all this energy, just poof, and it explodes, and for nothing. Just tire myself. And so instead of reacting how I usually act, have a tantrum, get upset, I'll pause and I'll say my little affirmations. And I'll just breathe and I'll remind myself, when you're calm, you can figure all of this out. So you've got to calm down so you can figure this out. And I know that sounds crazy, but it legitimately works. For me anyways. And at first it felt weird talking to myself a little bit, but I think that's a huge part of unlearning a habitual response and relearning a more adaptive and appropriate response. It's the ability to slow yourself down and pull yourself back and say, hey, whoa, like this got my attention. This has pulled something from within me that I need to pull back so that I can see this for what it really is. So that's so very important, and that's such a practical thing that anybody can do when they're overwhelmed or stressed out about a situation. Like really, really pull yourself back into the present in whatever way you do that, whether it's an affirmation, reminding yourself something, a quote, some sort of redirection that allows you to focus on the facts instead of the feelings of the situation. And once you're more anchored in the facts, the next steps naturally appear because you can see the bigger picture. So in today's episode, we're going to be getting into different practical tools and techniques that you can use to help just raise a greater degree of self-awareness, to think about your thinking, and also practical steps that you can take to unlearn previous behaviors and thinking patterns that weren't so helpful and relearn a more helpful and adaptive and empowering, if anything, way of thinking. Hey friend, I got a favor to ask you. And since we friends, I know you got me. So check it out. I need you to stop what you're doing and do a few things for me, okay? And you don't even have to leave your house. How about that? So it should be easy. All right, let's get into it. So I need you to make sure that you are following the Paging Dr. Teel podcast on Facebook and Instagram. You can find this at Paging Dr. Teel. That is both on Instagram and Facebook. Visit us on the web at www.pagingdrteel.com. And then I also need you to slide on over to Apple Podcasts or whatever streaming platform that you listen to podcasts on. And I need you to write us a review, a thoughtful, fire, thought-provoking review, friend. Something that screams respect and friendship, look out. Like, it's like if I was looking for a job and I asked you to be a reference. So I need you to vouch for me out here in these world wide web streets, friend, and let them know that I'm all right so that they can join our gang and so that we can take over the world by just being the best versions of ourselves and investing in our holistic wellness. Why? Because health is wealth, and so it's our jobs to take care of ourselves. So the best way for us to extend our reach and affect meaningful change is through sharing with like-minded people. So I would encourage you to also, with each episode, especially the ones that you enjoy, like, share, and comment. That's all I need you to do. Like, share, and comment. Let's keep the conversation going. Let's keep putting our best foot forward, and let's keep taking care of ourselves and each other. Let's get back to the show. Money looks better in the bank than in your closet, friend. So start your journey to financial wellness today with Harvest Time Financial. Harvest Time Financial can help grow your credit score by removing collections, medical bills, charge-offs, late payments, repossessions, and bankruptcy. Harvest Time Financial also offers one-on-one financial coaching, legacy and income protection, and notary services. Gain control of your money and jumpstart your financial wellness with Harvest Time Financial. Schedule a free consultation. Yes, free 99. Why haven't you gotten your consultation yet, friend? Schedule your free consultation now at harvesttimefinancial@gmail.com, and be sure to follow them on Instagram at harvesttimefinancial. Again, that's harvesttimefinancial@gmail.com for your free
consultation. And be sure to follow them on Instagram at Harvest Time Financial. And make sure you tell them that Dr. Teel sent you, friend. You're welcome.
On today's Random But Relevant, let's talk about the importance of flexibility, which is super fitting in that we're talking about thinking errors. And thinking errors arise from an inflexibility in thinking. So flexibility is super important because it's a key component in the mechanism that allows for change and unlearning and relearning a more appropriate response. Okay, so flexibility. Flexibility, practically speaking, means this, and I've experienced this myself, in particular during transitions. So transitions are extremely stressful. There's a lot of unknown, a lot of logistics, planning, waiting, and money spent when you're transitioning from one thing to the next, one phase, job, season, whatever the case may be. And so that produces a different type of situational stress on top of your day-to-day stress, and then the implications of societal related factors. So like you're adding a layer of stress onto that. And so we only perceive ourselves as incapable of handling a situation when the demands of the situation are much higher than our available resources to handle those things. So what that means is if we feel like we can handle a situation, then we handle it in a more productive and solution-oriented fashion. But when we don't feel like we can handle it, that impacts our ability to carry it out. Again, so thinking about our thinking is so important because the belief in yourself, that by itself alone lays the foundation for whether or not this is going to be a yes or a no type situation, whether or not this is going to be the cycle continues or a lesson learned. And so it's so very important for us to think about our thinking so that we can pause and allow ourselves a moment to reflect and decide how we will choose to respond. In the absence of a pause, we react. We are pulled emotionally into a situation. So practically speaking, flexibility requires a certain degree of frustration tolerance. Understanding that life happens and I am not special, so the world is not going to stop for me. And really reminding yourself of that in moments and practicing gratitude. Well, maybe I'm not where I want to be in this process, but I've taken these steps and I figured out that this thing doesn't work. So let me try something else. There's always a lesson depending on the perspective that you take. And so operating with that level of flexibility minimizes disappointment. And then along with that, I think flexibility requires a certain amount of humility, if you will, because today's been a very humbling day for me. I'm a problem solver. I'm a go-getter. And because of all of the unknown factors, limited time, and just circumstances out of my control, for example, I was approaching a situation in a way that was ineffective. And I was getting frustrated because it wasn't working out. The problem was not that this thing was so difficult it couldn't be solved. The way that I was looking at solving it was not effective. And instead of changing it on the front end, I was locked into the I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this way because I want to. And I kept getting the same result. I kept getting duds instead of advancing to the next stage in the process. And so for several hours, I allowed myself to be frustrated and my mood to be killed over and over and over and over and over because I refused to be flexible in my thinking and approach the problem with a different set of eyes. But when I approached the problem with a different set of eyes, solutions kept popping up in front of me, the path of least resistance. And so cognitive flexibility, flexibility in our thinking, flexibility in our approaches to solve problems is so very important. It's the difference between having a stressful day and just having stuff to do. Because ultimately, things are never bad. Things are never all bad or never all good. They just are. And so some days are better than others, but that means nothing because every day is going to be different. So we can only worry enough and care enough about today and only during today because tomorrow's going to have its own set of problems. So being flexible in our thinking and our maneuvering abilities and allowing ourselves to laugh and be humbled by these challenges and see, hey, I'm not special or perfect or any different from anybody else. So I have to get in line and I have to figure out a way to be comfortable while I stand in line. And I think that's what flexibility in your thinking is about. It's about finding a comfortable seat in your mind and running strategies from there. But that's a huge journey. A lot of unlearning, personal responsibility, accountability, and humility, but it's possible, and that's why we're here. And so we're going to get into some more of these solutions to unhealthy thinking so that we can change the world inside of us, so that we can change the world outside of us. Hey, friend. All right, without further ado, it's showtime. Let's get to these solutions, aka straight facts. Straight facts. This week I've got 5 Teel therapeutic gems targeted towards combating cognitive errors. To close out our series on Master Your Mind, Change Your Life, Overcoming Thinking Errors, the solutions. We're going to get into the solutions shortly, but I wanted to emphasize some key concepts to be familiar with in taking the practical steps to change your thinking. First and foremost, if you've done the homework, you've been able to determine your top 3 cognitive distortions by now, you should have gotten in touch with the little voice in your head. And for some of us, the little voice in our head is not as nice or as positive as we might have thought. Interestingly enough, harsh self-talk often resembles the voices of people in our lives that have put us down. And so often these voices originate from aversive experiences in childhood or just internalized attributions that people have placed on us and we've accepted and internalized. So taking on characteristics that people highlight in you. I just made that up. But it's okay because I can do that, right? I'm a doctor. Kidding. Definitely kidding. A little humor there. Anywho, so that little voice in your head, it's very important in thinking about our thinking to be mindful of that voice. That voice in our head often believes those things that we think. So in thinking about our thinking, we get to change that little voice in our head. And so ideally, I always tell my clients that in thinking about the voice in your little head, and we always talk to or with that little voice in our head, that's how we think through things. I would encourage you to talk to yourself, like try to engage in self-talk in a way that you would talk to your best friend or a child. You would not be rude or mean or judgmental to your best friend or to your child. So in changing our thinking, that has the ability to affect that internal voice that's with us all day, every day. And just imagine if that internal voice was a cheerleader, it was supportive, it was affirming, like it was encouraging, then you'd have a much better internal space. So the goal of changing our thinking is to help to do that. And in order to do that, we have to identify the roots of that, and the roots of that are in our thoughts. And so just two key things to think about that, and being able to think about our thinking, we develop a greater self-awareness of who we're really talking to, and what we're feeding ourselves. And sometimes the inner voice that we have is our biggest critic. Thinking about our thinking helps to address that critic in a meaningful way, in a healthy way, in a healing way, and in a way that allows you to adapt. So just important things to consider. And then another key piece is emotional regulation. In order to pause and be more present and think about your thinking so that you can think in more helpful ways, you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, because it brings up a lot of different emotions. And so emotions can create an action or urge in our bodies, believe it or not. When you're happy, you're inspired to do more. When you're sad, you do less. When you're angry, some people might become destructive or overly active. So emotions create movement of energy within us. And we can change our emotion by changing our actions. And in order to change our actions, we have to address our thinking first. So it's all connected. It's like a chain. And so if we can respond in that chain of events instead of reacting, it gives us more control over the situation. And so we do this by choosing an action that is opposite of the urge being created by the current emotion. So it's this concept of fake it until you make it. And I hate that. But for example, in treating depression is treated, say for example, with cognitive behavioral therapy. Someone is depressed, they're doing less. And so the goal of behavioral activation in the treatment of depression is to get this person re-engaged with life. And eventually they will experience enough positive or affirming experiences that allow them to feel connected and supported and experience more positive emotions. And so it's this idea of faking it until you make it. And there's a lot of validity in that, because oftentimes people are depressed due to deprivation of positively reinforcing stimuli or events. But if you put them in a more positive place, in a more affirming or validating environment, they're likely to grow. They're likely to report at least feeling happier. And so, our emotions matter, but they matter. They change so very much. And so we have to prioritize logic. We have to prioritize the facts over the feelings, so that we're not being led down a destructive path of wasted energy. Because for me, that was a game changer. When I realized I was wasting my own time getting big mad on the front end of different things, I was like, oh no, this is self-sabotage. And so, I'm sorry, I just had to have some water. I've been drinking this alkaline water. And for me personally, alkaline water, random but relevant, holistic health hack, getting it in there, right? But I've been drinking this alkaline water, and like I feel like I'm more hydrated. Maybe it's like the placebo effect. I'm buying into all the hype. But personally, I've found that like all water doesn't taste the same. I feel like Aquafina water has like a fizz to it, and it's water, and it's not supposed to have anything. But interestingly, I've been preferring this alkaline water. It's 9.5 in pH, allergies cutting up, friend, do you suffer from allergies? I use black seed oil for mine. Another holistic health hack. But let's get back to what we're actually talking about. I had to grab a sip of my water because I have been talking considerably long as we get into these solutions or practical facts designed to help you challenge or combat your cognitive errors and thinking distortions that get in the way of you seeing the full picture, because these thinking errors create mental and emotional blind spots. It's so important. You can't solve a problem if you're not able to see the whole problem. And flaws in our thinking create those blind spots that only we see. So we are literally blinded to some element of that problem. And so it's so very important for us to be able to recognize that so that we can address it. You can't fix a problem that you aren't aware of, which is why self-awareness is a foundational step after, acquiring a foundational level of a vocabulary for terms that can describe these patterns. Because oftentimes when you can put it into words, then you're better able to identify it and address it. And so that's why, if you haven't listened to the last week's episode, I would encourage you to listen to that one. It talks about the importance of self-awareness as a foundational step to changing your thinking. And I think that's a good place to start if you're new to the podcast and just decided to listen to this episode. Hey friend, welcome to the gang. But I would encourage you to go back and listen to the beginning episodes of the series so that you can really maximize and get the most out of this. Speaking of which, okay, so I've got some directions for you. So these are going to be like prescriptions. Our solutions, our straight facts are going to be like prescriptions, and there are always directions with prescriptions. And let me give you mine. So in terms of creating any type of behavioral change, you're going to want to commit 21 days, at least 21 days, to being intentional and engaging in whatever behavior change tool or technique provided. And so that means you get intentional about this practice. To do that, you can set alarms on your phone. I would encourage getting an accountability partner and doing this thing with someone else, maybe a friend, maybe your significant other, whatever the case may be. I would also recommend having some sort of journal, whether it's a handwritten journal or the notes section on your phone, something to where you can write and experience whatever you're experiencing in that day. So that would be number 2. And number 3, just openness to the experience. Like, in order to change, because we're not necessarily taught how to be, we're shaped by our environment. We're programmed to respond in such instinctual ways. And sometimes our instincts fail us when our intellect could be applied. And so to maximize and get the most out of any of our activities, techniques, or solution, I would encourage commitment of 21 days with some sort of journaling practice included to maximize and get the desired result. So at least 21 days. They say it takes 21 days to create a new habit. So I would encourage a 21-day period. Engage in whatever the activity is at least 2 to 3 times a day during that period for maximum benefit. I've tried these things myself. I've recommended them to clients. The research says it works. So that's my recommendation regarding incorporating any of the things that we discuss today. All right, so we're going to get straight to it. One of my favorite ways, both personal and professional ways to restructure my thinking is through utilizing some sort of reframe. Very simple. I utilize a reframe. And by that, I mean, I'll ask myself two questions in that moment. What am I missing? Like, what am I missing here? Is there something that I'm missing? So what am I missing? And then also, what am I supposed to learn from this? And just shifting from a place of being triggered and anticipating the worst to be shifted over to more of a place of curiosity allows me to let go of the emotion and tap into my logic and rational thinking and problem solving abilities, like all of those higher levels of intellect as opposed to instinctual responses. And so for me, I found that just being curious with how I feel and respond to things allows me enough space to pause and to evaluate what I'm being presented with, as opposed to just being pulled into the situation by my emotions. So reframe. Reframing is something that has been highly beneficial for myself. I've worked with clients that suffered from anxiety, depression, adjustment related disorders, meaning that they were transitioning from one phase in life or one chapter in life to the next, and they had a little hard time. It was a bit more stressful for them. Individuals just having a hard time managing stress or problem solving as well. Engaging in cognitive reframing is what it's formally called. And like I said before, it's 1,000 different ways to say the same thing in psychology. But cognitive reframing allows you to release expectations and look at the situation in a way that's beneficial for you. There's a benefit in every situation if we allow ourselves to see it. Sometimes it's harder to see the benefit depending on the situation and the stakes. But a simple reframe and operating from a place of curiosity instead of judgment in certain situations allows for more cognitive flexibility and heightens your problem solving capabilities, lowers your stress, and allows you to see the picture for what it really is, as opposed to allowing your emotions to color that in a way that creates a blind spot. So number one therapeutic gem for today, in closing out our series about changing your thinking and mastering your mind, is utilizing a cognitive reframe to shift your perspective, to allow you to be a bit more curious about your circumstances as opposed to applying a snap judgment. And this just allows for flexibility, improved frustration tolerance, and just the ability to more objectively solve your problem based off of evidence as opposed to emotion. Remember, we want to stick to the facts and not the feelings. All right, boom. So our first therapeutic gem was reframe. In certain situations, it is best to reframe and shift perspective so that you can turn that L into a lesson and keep it moving. Number two on our list of therapeutic gems, while in some situations we have to reframe, in other situations it's more beneficial to judge. So therapeutic gem number two is judging. Everyone says, don't judge me, don't judge me. But here's the thing. The reality of life is that we make our decisions due to judgments. There are judgments. We live on the basis of judgments. Someone makes a judgment about everything that we do, and we make judgments about things that others do, and that creates a chain of events. So we live in a world of judgment. So to say don't judge, it's funny, and I say that, but realistically, judgment is survival based. But the difference is that judgment has to derive from a place of logic as opposed to a place of wild instinct or emotion. Now, I'm not downplaying by any means emotion and instinct, because if harnessed correctly, the leveraging of the two is incredible. But I think it requires a level of emotional maturity and time and experience. And it literally takes time to develop the type of wisdom and control you need to manage your emotions, because you learn through life. I feel like for me, the shortcut, just being honest, I feel like the shortcut, because I'm not going to become emotionally mature tomorrow. For me, the shortcut is to work on being more rational, to really unlearn engaging from a place of emotion and relearn engaging from a place of logic, because it makes a world of difference. And I've been able to see over the past couple of weeks how me just operating from a place of emotion has blinded my objectivity and created more suffering, and unnecessary suffering at that. So it's it's crazy to me that I had to be inconvenienced in such a way to make me realize that I was looking at things the wrong way. Like, everything that I was experiencing was in preparation for what I've asked for. And what I've asked for is coming to pass. And now I'm getting the lessons that I need to sustain me in that chapter. So it's interesting how it's interesting how things play out. And so we're talking about judgment as our second. I know I went off on a little tangent, but that was definitely for a reason. But in relating to judgments, the second therapeutic gem that I would have for you in regards to that is to use our judgments in a way to analyze the evidence that we have in front of us. And by that I mean we're judging and separating facts versus opinion. So you make all the facts. You make a list of what you think. You can make a list of the facts and how you feel. And you go through and you look it over, you weigh them all out. And after you've looked at all your thoughts and after you looked at all your feelings, you fold those two pieces of paper up and you look at the facts. And those become the things that you focus on. You get everything out, your thoughts, your feelings, but you focus on the facts. And I don't think that instinctively our minds, depending on our experience, allow us to zero directly in on the facts without practice. Our mind is wired for pleasure or gratification and the avoidance of pain. So our mind works in so many interesting ways to avoid what we perceive as pain. And because it does that so instinctually, at times the way that it goes about doing it can be faulty if there's no quality assurance. And the quality assurance piece is us thinking about our thinking. So we have to be a bit more critical of our thoughts because we get to choose our thoughts. Our thoughts, a chosen thought affects how we feel, which affects our actions. So because our thoughts are so very important, it's even more important for us to stop and really analyze our thinking and really pick thoughts that align with who and where we want to be. Because the problem is not in the world. It's in our minds. The struggle that we feel like we experience, it's not in the world. It's in our minds. And I feel like if we can master that struggle, that fear, that worry, that conflict, that doubt in our mind, then we can master the world. And that starts with judging, being a judger, embracing that judgment, judging your thoughts in a way that allows you to focus in on the facts. Because focusing on the facts gets you to the solution quicker, period. tomorrow is not promised to any of us. And so as I'm getting older, I'm learning that I always ask myself, is this the best use of my energy? Is this the best use of my energy? Because there's so many things that are not the best use of our energy, and we don't get that time back. And so it's so very important now more than ever for us to be a bit more judgmental about who and what we allow into our personal space, and to be a bit more accountable. And that means to, be socially accountable, collectively accountable, and individually accountable. And before we can hold anybody else accountable, we have to hold ourselves accountable. So being a judge of your thoughts allows you to be a better picker. It allows you to pick better, because ideally they say when you know better, you do better. So our first therapeutic gem in closing out this series was practicing a cognitive reframe, shifting your perspective, approaching a situation with curiosity. The second is to judge. In certain situations, we have to be judges of our inner experience, and we identify those inner experiences, and then we focus on the facts. Focusing on the facts gets us to the solutions a bit more quicker. We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back for therapeutic gem. Not there. It is a fact, but it's more of a gem in this context. So we're going to come back after this quick break with our third therapeutic gem, and then we're going to get out of here. So I think we've been here long enough. I've missed you guys again. I'm super sorry for the wait. Paige and Dr. Teel has been on the road again, working on some wonderful things to come, details to follow. But yeah, let's take a break and finish things out. All right, so boom. Last, but certainly not least, last and final therapeutic gem for our Master Your Mind, Change Your Life, Overcoming Thinking Errors series. Today we're closing out our series on thinking errors, and we're talking all about the solutions, all about these therapeutic gems and straight facts designed to help you think about your thinking in a way that will allow you to take control of your circumstances and to feel empowered and confident and able to handle whatever comes your way, because it's not a matter of can you do this? It's not a matter of ability, because you can do whatever it is you put your mind to. The bigger battle is putting your mind to it. So if you have the tools that you need to keep your mind mentally sharp, there's nothing that you cannot accomplish, ability or not. It starts with your belief in yourself. And so last in our series, but certainly not least, because this is one of my favorites, and this is something that I struggle with. This is something that I've seen universally that all of my clients struggle with. And I think it's a very human thing, but surrender. So surrender is the last of my gems for you friends today. And surrender is very important because there are certain situations that are completely beyond our control and they completely suck. There's no positive reframe for that. No feeling better about finding the lesson or the perspective. In judging the facts are what they are, and so there's no reprieve from that. And so in those situations where gem 1 and 2 just will not do, you got to tap into 3 and you'll be all right with me. You like, I did that? That's funny, right? Anywho, but seriously, surrender goes hand in hand with acceptance. And even with my own experience in therapy as a client, that would always be a lingering question, like for the things that just really bothered me the most, and I always had something to say about it and could never really let it go. How do I accept this? How do I just become okay with this. And I've learned later through experience is that you just surrender. You stop thinking about what it could be. You stop focusing on feelings of loss or being wrong, anything that allows you to claim some sort of victimhood, and you just accept it with no judgment. It is what it is. And for me to accept things in particular, I journal because it gives me an opportunity to get it out and to see it. And in my head and out in words looks different. So then I'm able to kind of pick apart what my experience really is, because what I think and feel in my mind sometimes isn't the same as what I write out. And so that allows me to kind of accept it, see it, and start to wrap my mind around it. And for me, I think that's the game changer. Once I can wrap my mind around something, then I can move on. But to not understand, to not be able to make sense of things, it leaves me frazzled. And I'm sure I'm not the only one. So for me, journaling has helped to unfrazzle me mentally, allow me to see things a bit more clearly and more objectively, and surrender to circumstances that are just beyond my control. Meditation and prayer is also something that I use to really focus in on my thoughts and how I want to feel. This morning I woke up and I said, I'm not going to look at my phone for the first hour, and I'm going to pray and I'm going to meditate. And I did that this morning, and it's something I've been meaning to do, but don't do it consistently enough. But in doing it this morning and kind of reorienting myself to that practice, it really, for me, I think was the push in the right direction. I feel a lot more clear mentally and not anxious and overwhelmed like the day has started without me. Like typically when I wake up and look at emails and text messages, I already feel like I'm behind. But the mornings where I put myself first and start my day on my terms, game changer. And it's just in developing that type of practice that allows me to feed my spirit before I give so much of my spirit away to other people. It just allows me to stay centered, and it allows me to think in a more holistic and clear way because I've nourished and taken care of myself. Make sense? So maybe that's something that you could give a try to, friend. I gave you the top 3 therapeutic gems: reframe, judge, and surrender. But along with those 3 things, creating some sort of practice, daily practice that allows you to release your thoughts and also reflect on them, as well as developing habits and patterns that center you, that allow you to think from a place of clarity, because it's our responsibility to create that safe space. We have to create the safety that we need and the safety that's necessary for us to thrive. That is our personal responsibility. No one is coming to save us. We have to save ourselves. And it starts with working on our inner stuff. Our inner stuff is like the stuff that we can push under our bed. It's under the bed. Everything seemingly looks clean, but it's a huge mess under your bed. We've got to do a better job at sweeping under our beds. And so developing some sort of daily practice that allows you to feel centered and feel empowered is a step in that direction. So I would encourage you to give that a try, friend. Let me know how it works. And I hope all of this was helpful for you. I've been experiencing a lot of different changes, and I've been able to kind of reflect on my inner experience and how I typically respond to stressful situations versus how I want to respond. And it's nice to know and to feel that I'm right on the cusp of where I want to be, but it's taken time. It's taken practice. It's taken character building moments, but it's nice to know that I'm on my way, and you can be on your way too, friend. If you start today, it takes 21 days to create a new habit. Why not create new sustainable habits that allow you to be the best you? Why not? And remember, friend, your health is your wealth, so you gotta take care of yourself. Duh.
Well, friends, we are out of time for today, but you know I'm never out of solutions. First, I want to remind you to subscribe so that you can stay locked into the latest and greatest of Paging Dr. Teel. Then I want you to share this episode with at least one person and or on your social media page. Both are much appreciated. And after you've done that, please take just 1 minute out of your day and leave a review of the podcast. Whether you listen on Apple, Spotify, whatever the case may be, leave us a review. Reviews are important because they allow us to stand out a bit more and serve as a reference of sorts to new listeners. Sharing is caring, and knowledge is power. So please do both. Thank you in advance. Also, follow us on Facebook, Instagram at Paging Dr. Teel. Visit us on the web at www.pagingdrteel.com. Working on the website. It's being revamped. New content coming for you guys. I'm actually about to start offering a life coach and wellness consultation sessions. Whew. You definitely might want to check that out. Life-changing type stuff. One-on-one with Doc. You get to lay on the couch, the virtual couch, yourself with me. It sounds fun, right? More information to follow, but you've gotta check us out on www.pagingdrteel.com for more information about your wellness consultation sessions with the good doc. And so since I'm like your psychologist bestie, if you have a question or situation you want to get some guidance on, send them to pagingdrteel@gmail.com. I'm here for you, so I want to hear from you. In parting, remember, friends, your health is your wealth, so take care of yourself. Stay ready so you don't have to get ready, and don't lighten up, tighten up. Later.